What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Week 5 edition of the Best Effin' Fantasy Show. I'm your host, Steve Albertini, joined by my producer. I want to introduce Nikki first this week. My producer, Nick Specker, to my right. And on the other side of the table, we have the senior analyst, Carmen Del Mastro, and Jerry Percopio. Thanks for tuning in. Buys this week are Minnesota, Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay, and Washington. So any Adrian Peterson owners, RG3, Antonio Brown, Doug Martin, change your lineup. Stay tuned to the Best Effin' Fantasy Show all week for any questions you may have for your lineup this week. This is Week 5, and it is a special buy-sell edition. We're a quarter of the way through the season. Started to get, at least a little bit of a resume on everybody to kind of make a decision and project them throughout the rest of the year. And we're gonna dive right into the Thursday night special. Buffalo travels to Cleveland to take on the Browns in the dog pound. Buffalo coming off a big win last week against the defending champs, picking off Joe Flacco 5 times. And Cleveland's been 2-0 since the much-talked-about trade of Trent Richardson. So, guys, first buy-sell of the night is going to be C.J. Spiller. Number 1 pick in all formats a month ago. Has not lived up to the billing like a lot of other running backs have. I want to get your opinion. Buy, sell on Spiller, or wait it out and see what happens.
I love C.J. Spiller. I love his potential, but he's not living up to the hype, as you can see. So if you could trade him, go ahead and get.
What's your answer?
Yeah, we're gonna
Buy.
have to be definitive.
Sell.
I would sell him because there's probably people out there that love C.J. Spiller, or
in northern New York.
Yes.
Yeah,
if you have anybody in your league that favors C.J. Spiller, have somebody on their team that you think you can get better value, go ahead and do it.
I've talked about him a couple weeks now. He's been a jerk-off of mine 2 weeks in a row, and he's proven me right to be a jerk-off. And matter of fact, now the emergence of Fred Jackson. Fred Jackson also got a little banged up, which isn't too pleasing to me because I'm actually a Fred Jackson fan. I'm also a C.J. Spiller fan, but the way that offense is going to have to work is it's going to go between both backs, and now both of them are a little banged up. So that doesn't play into the favor of either one of them. So in my opinion, I'll have to sell C.J. Spiller.
All right, me personally, I am a Spiller owner. It's no secret. I have not been happy with his performance this year. But here's the problem, and it's the problem we're going to encounter with a couple other guys later on in the show, first-round running backs. You're not going to get anything close to equal value for them. So in my opinion, what I'm going to do is, unless someone's going to accept a package deal where I can get you're not getting what you were getting 4 weeks ago. I'm well aware of that, but unless you can get somewhat close to respectable value for him, I'm just going to hold on to him, and you'll get a couple big games out of him later on in the year. I mean, he carried the ball 23 times last week. Not to great production, but he did get the ball a lot, 23 times. Rushed for over 100 yards 2 weeks ago. The week before against the Jets, he got injured. So I'm going to wait it out with C.J. Spiller, me personally.
Before I put my hex on him.
What?
Before I put my hex on him?
Yeah, and then that was over after that. I mean, we're going to talk about it with other guys.
It's an excellent point you bring up, though, because there are a lot of running backs that everyone thought that were going to be breakouts this year. Unfortunately, they've all been a big letdown. The majority of the first-round backs. Yeah,
as a matter of it's true. There's a handful of them that went in the first 10 to 12 picks, and we'll get to a couple of them shortly. But I want to jump to the other side of the ball now, and Brian Hoyer has been, a pleasant surprise to say the least. Going forward, is he a guy that, and not necessarily buy or sell because you're not going to go and actively seek a trade for Brian Hoyer, I wouldn't think. But would you, pick him up off waivers? Would you, make a play for him? What do you think about Hoyer going forward now that we've seen 2 solid games and 2 wins for the Browns?
I like Hoyer as a bye-week plug-in, so in my opinion, I'm going to have to buy him. He has some weapons on the outside. He's got Gordon, Greg Little if he can ever find it, but he also has the man Jordan Cameron right now who's absolutely on fire. So he has two guys he can get the ball to, and he has shown that he's been capable of doing that. So in my opinion, I'll buy him as a week-to-week, plug-in.
Absolutely. He's definitely a quarterback, too, for the remainder of the season. Threw 300 yards last week. First time Browns had a 300-yard passer since 2007, when the Derek Anderson era was.
Derek Anderson.
Yeah, remember that? So, 2 weeks in a row, 300 yards last week, almost 300 yards this week. Everything's clicking. And with a team that lacks in the running game, he's going to be passing the whole rest of the year. So, I like him.
Yeah, I agree. For a QB2, a bye-week fill-in, Brian Hoyer's good. I'm not going to start him every single week, but I do like what I've seen out of Brian Hoyer thus far. And the Browns have no semblance of a running game, and they will throw the ball early and often. Moving on to the next matchup, the 1-3 Eagles travel to the Meadowlands to take on the 0-4 Giants. A couple guys to talk about in this matchup. A lot of boom or bust types, as we like to call them, in the in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Are we in the industry?
It's in the industry.
We're knocking on the door.
We got a FanDuel sponsorship, so
yeah. I mean, if you guys play FanDuel, check us out. Use our
promo code.
Use our promo code BestEffin. First guy I want to talk about. First guy I want to talk about on the Eagles is Deshaun Jackson. Came out of the gate hot the first 2 weeks, but has cooled off considerably in the last two. Defenses have
rolling that safety.
Have found a way to take him out of games like they did many times in the last 2 years, and have relegated him to this boom or bust type receiver. Buy or sell on Deshaun Jackson going forward in 2013?
Oh, I'm going to keep Deshaun Jackson. I still trust him. I don't care what defenses do. He's a guy that he's probably going to have the best season of his career this year in this Chip Kelly offense.
Well, I mean, Chip Kelly will probably be the coach of USC by the end of the week, so that's neither here nor there.
I tweeted that.
Sorry. It's my boy.
What's up?
That's what.
Hashtag future headlines.
Well, I'm going to stay with Deshaun Jackson just because it's a two-weapon offense right now. Shady, Djax. One of them has to produce week to week. They can't seem to find a third option, even though they have 6 tight ends that Chip Kelly doesn't want to use. So I'm going to stay even keel with Deshaun Jackson. Still has that breakout capability from week to week, so I'll stay with him.
He's still getting plenty of looks, too, keep in mind, though. It's not like they just stopped throwing it to him. He's getting the looks.
It's a great point Kwame brought up about the tight ends because they're guys that really need to get involved more in the offense.
You don't give someone $15 million a year in James Casey to do absolutely nothing. He needs to be involved in the offense. The guy can line up all over the field. I don't see what the big deal is with Chip Kelly and James Casey. The guy needs to be in the lineup. Same thing with Ertz. And
Absolutely.
you actually have your worst tight end starting.
Salad dropping passes in the red zone.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of play. Look, you've seen the last 2 weeks that the absence of Jeremy Maclin hurts them on the opposite side, and it's hurt Jackson the last 2 weeks. But hang on to Jackson. But just know that, he's not going to be as bad as he was the last 2 games, and he's probably not going to be as great as he was the first 2 games. But it will be a nice overall bounce-back year for Deshaun after what we've seen in the last 2 seasons. Jumping to the other side of the ball, 2 guys that we've talked about a pretty good deal in the early going of this season. The first one, who we would think this would be the perfect week for him to break out, is Hakeem Nicks. Buy or sell Hakeem Nicks going forward.
I've never been a huge Hakeem Nicks fan, personally, so I'm going to have to sell him. Last week I took the chance of making one of my legends just because I went with the bitch or produce theory, as we like to call it.
He was the only one that didn't come
he's the
through.
only one.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm selling Hakeem Nicks.
He got the looks. He just dropped 3 passes, too.
That's what he does.
I
mean, he has 5X hands, but he still manages to drop passes.
2 of them were bombs.
Given his ADP in the draft, he probably went around 6 to 8 this year.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, having him as a third receiver, that's not too bad. I would wait it out. I mean, that's just me assuming that you got him as, maybe a second or third receiver. I still think he's going to produce later on.
And we still run into that problem with the wideouts, too. What are you going to get with these guys?
Mm-hmm.
Probably the, to this part of the season, probably the ultimate buy or sell candidate is David Wilson. A lot of hype coming into the year, has produced in our league 8 fantasy points in 4 weeks.
Love it.
What do you do with David Wilson, buy or sell?
I own David Wilson in our league,
And you should trade him to me.
and I'm going to stick with him. His schedule coming up, next 4 games, they're looking pretty good for him, especially against the Eagles.
You haven't traded anyone since 04. So
Last year I got Calvin Johnson for you, and I gave you Darren McFadden,
and
so you're
also
welcome.
Beat you in the playoffs.
Doesn't matter. I made it off on that trade.
So
So I do make trades, but seriously, I would stick with David Wilson, and because Carm wants him, I think he would stick with David Wilson as well.
I don't have to answer.
But let's hear Jerry's input on David Wilson.
What about Danny Woodhead?
I personally don't like
There
David
it
Wilson.
is, right there. I know that's why.
I'm not. I just don't have enough confidence to trust him week to week, especially with the fact that the Giants are going to be playing from behind, how bad their defense has been. So they're going to be in a lot of passing situations coming up. So I just don't trust him. And if he fumbles again, he's probably going to get taken out of the game.
The fact that they released Darrell
There
Scott
it is. Say it, Carm.
doesn't do anything for you, Jerry. So you're going to give Brandon Jacobs 20 carries a game now?
I don't know. We'll see. I just
Come on,
don't.
Jerry. I need more than you. We'll see.
I just don't trust him.
That's fine. Steve, what do you think about David Wilson?
David Wilson is interesting. I think he's not at the level of the first rounders that we're going to talk about,
No.
but he's kind of in the same category where his value couldn't be any lower right now.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So me personally, I would locate the guy who has David Wilson in your league, and I'd send him a couple.
I see him.
Oh.
I see him.
Couple offers, see if he bounces, see if he pounces on them, and whatever. I'm not giving up, another like a comparable guy in the
Would
draft.
you trade Maurice Jones-Drew for David Wilson?
Well, that's a guy that we're going to talk to. We'll talk about later.
MJD.
That's an interesting
The
question.
Easy Oompa
Yeah.
Loompa.
That's what me and Carm have right now, spruing.
Yeah, the fact that Wilson's value is so low, you might be able to get him. You might be able to trade like somebody on your team that you drafted later for him if somebody's ready to give up on him, and he could be that guy that could eventually blow up later in the year.
Right.
But that's a chance you have to take.
Or it
You're
could
not
be a
going to get.
bust.
You're not going to get like.
Which he kind of did last year. I
Yeah.
mean, he got off to an awful start, and the last, I believe, 6 games of last year, he had one of the highest yards per attempt out of anyone in the league,
Yeah.
and fantasy points per touch. I think I'm in the minority when I say that I don't think David Wilson's going to break out this week. I mean, as awful as the Eagles are on defense, I think that Eli's going to have a day throwing the ball.
It's about time yesterday.
Victor Cruz is going to go off like he has been. I think Knicks will be okay. But that's just my personal opinion. Start everyone in the Saints-Bears game. Moving right along.
Thank you.
The Patriots travel to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. Bengals coming off a tough loss to Cleveland last week. New England had a nice win in Atlanta Sunday night. Is Amendola back this week? Is that what we're hearing in the
They said he has a good
Whispers.
chance. They said he has a good chance of playing.
Twitter sphere.
I mean, if he does, good for you. And temper your expectations on Tompkins' production. That's all I'm going to say.
Do you think Tompkins dips down? I mean, the last 2 weeks he's been producing pretty well.
I mean, Brady has shown a lot of trust in him. That he's the second.
Aaron Dobson got banged
He
up.
got banged
Yeah,
up
he
in the
did.
end zone.
Yeah, he did. But Tompkins will still be heavily involved in that receiving game, even when Amendola comes back. Brady likes him.
I think that's the key, though. I think once Amendola and Gronk come back, Tompkins is still going to be on the field. You're not expecting anything tremendous out of
he's
him, but
probably-
he's going to be on the
Get
field.
that Brandon
at least.
Lloyd
Yeah.
factor
Yeah.
from him.
Yeah.
He's probably not going to get, 12 to 15 looks every week. That'll probably dip a little bit, but he's still going to be productive.
Now, it would be an interesting buy-sell question maybe in 2-3 weeks
That's a good call.
when Tompkins has another couple games without Amendola and without Gronk under his belt. And then, we can kind of see where he stands there. On the other side of the ball, just one simple question. Is Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis done fantasy-wise in Cincinnati?
I would never have him anyway, so in
No.
my opinion, he's been done since the season
been
even started.
Yeah. We all knew that
He's going to phase out.
Bernard was going to overtake him as the lead ball carrier.
Yeah, we've seen the gradual progression of the first 4 weeks of Gio getting on the field more, and I think last week he was on the field for 50 plays compared to 18 for Ben Jarvis. And they were throwing a lot, but that's how it's going to be from here on out. Gio's the guy. Detroit travels to Green Bay for a NFC North matchup. You're going to start everyone you would normally start, I would assume. One thing of note, Eddie Lacy back. He missed the Week 3 game in Cincinnati with a concussion. He should be back, ready to go. But real quick, I want to talk about him because we didn't talk about him last week when they were on bye. Is Jonathan Franklin racked up over 100 yards in Cincinnati in Week 3, and then obviously had a crucial fumble that cost Green Bay the game. But is Jonathan Franklin worth a pickup and stashing going forward?
I think he's definitely worth a pickup if you're a Lacey owner. And yeah, if you have roster space, you could pick him up because you never know how Lacey's going to come back. Is he going to come back and play strong? Is he going to get another concussion? You never know what's going to happen. But if you have roster space, Franklin showed that he could carry the load, so I would pick him up.
Kansas City travels to Tennessee this week to take on the Titans, and a couple guys that are prime buy-sell candidates. But first, Jake Locker got hurt this past week. Was actually having a really nice start to the season. Tennessee's 3-1. He's out 4 to 8 weeks, so keep an eye on that. Staying with the Titans, Chris Johnson. He's a guy that we've talked about ad nauseum on this show for the last 3 years. Is Chris Johnson buy or sell? Where do you stand on him?
My boss wanted to drop him this week. I told him not to.
We're not going to drop Chris Johnson.
He's so pissed off at him.
Well, welcome to my life from 2011.
Yeah.
What do you think, buy or sell?
If you could sell him, I would. But I don't know what you're going to get for him. That's the problem as always.
Yeah, he's got some tough games coming up. Kansas City, Seattle, San Francisco. You're not going to get much out of him right now. So I would wait it out.
Yeah, because you look further down the line, then you go Jacksonville, New Orleans, Oakland, Indy. That's a 4-game stretch right there that Chris Johnson can explode, and those are games that are leading up to the playoffs to be very valuable for a couple of fantasy owners out there, I'm sure. So I'll stay.
Sir.
I also like to live dangerously.
I can't stand that many
I'm
Chris
selling,
Johnson.
and it has nothing to do with my personal bias.
It has everything to do with my personal.
It's just
I hadn't year before either.
It's been a long time since he rushed for 2,000 yards. That's all I'm going to say. Dwayne Bowe, buy or sell Dwayne Bowe. Not Andy Reid not using Dwayne Bowe kind of in the way that some of us thought he would.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on Bowe going forward? Buy or sell?
I still think Bo's kind of getting used to this offense a little bit. I would buy him at a low price right now.
Yeah, we have to buy him also. This week was a good indication that he's starting to get more involved in the offense.
Mm-hmm.
Finally finds the end zone, so I'm going to buy a Bowe at low end buy also.
All right, well, I own Bowe, and I'll check in next week with all the fans when neither one of these guys send or accept a trade request involving Dwayne Bowe.
What do you mean, Steve?
We're going to keep that out.
Steve.
We're gonna just let the fans know what happens next week with Dwayne Bowe. Seattle, after a exciting win in Houston last week, travels to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. And look, we kind of know what we're going to get out of Seattle. Trent Richardson's a guy that we've talked about a lot the last couple of weeks since he's come over in the trade from Cleveland. Seattle, we know Seattle is a great home team, okay on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see some sort of opportunity for Trent Richardson to continue building on his performance in Indiana this week against the Seahawks?
I think so, because look at Arian Foster rushed over 100 yards last week against. I think Richardson's going to get the ball 20 to 25 carries, maybe 100 yards and a touchdown. Because they're really good against receivers, so I think they're going to pound the rock a lot.
So are you benching Reggie Wayne then if you have him?
If I have better options, I would bench Reggie Wayne this week. Seattle gives up the fewest points to opposing lineouts.
There it is.
There it is, folks.
Sorry.
Jacksonville travels to St. Louis to take on the Rams, and we're going to stay on Jacksonville for this entire segment. Buy, sell, guy we talked about a little bit briefly. We teased you with him a couple minutes ago, but Maurice Jones-Drew, buy or sell?
Carmen.
Well,
really...
first off, okay,
Can I speak?
Go ahead. I
can speak.
we were waiting.
Can I live?
There's really only one option with Jones-Drew, and that's you're stuck with him basically because no one's going to take him. So ultimately, you have to keep him because you're not going to get anything for him. So there's no buy, there's no sell. You have to stay with him. And that's what it is. We talked about that earlier, so there you go.
Especially the fact that St. Louis gives up the most points to opposing running backs. This week is a perfect week to wait it out. Jones-Drew gets 100 yards, touchdown or two.
Give me Maurice Jones-Drew!
And you sell him high. And you can probably get whatever you want with him.
Well, that's a good point, though. You actually, you identify the good matchup against St. Louis, And
Listen, he's had favorable
comes
matchups
through.
the last 3 weeks, and he's done absolutely nothing.
It's not him, it's the team. The team is just in disarray right now.
Justin Blackman back after his 4-game suspension. What do you think about Justin Blackman, buy or sell? Or if he's out there on the waiver wire, you go snag him.
He's probably available in, I would say, 30 to 40% of leagues. According to Best Ever Fantasy Show statistician Peter Bolin, he's available in 37% of leagues. So if he's there, go get him. Why not?
Go get him.
He's going to do something.
Him and Shorts both produced well in the second half of last year. Baltimore travels to Miami to take on the Dolphins, who are reeling from their loss Monday night against the Saints. Ray Rice.
Oh.
Ray Rice, a guy that, falls into this. All
Fucking
right,
Yahoo.
that's professional. Ray Rice falls into the C.J. Spiller, Doug Martin, Maurice Jones-Drew mold of guys that are just underperforming, guys that we expected a lot out of. Ray Rice only rushed, 5 times for
5 times for like
17 yards last week.
15, 17 yards.
Not what you want out of Ray Rice. Where do you stand, buy or sell on Ray Rice?
I would try to sell Ray Rice because he's still in that timeshare. Even though Bernard Pierce is a little banged up, it's still going to be a timeshare from here on out. I would think you're not going to get equal value where you drafted him from. So just like C.J. Spiller, probably not going to get equal value.
At this point in the season, though, drafting position goes out the window.
It does.
So ask what point does it go? Where's it going?
It's right now. It's from
It's
this
official.
point on. I just made it official. According to Best Effort Fantasy Show statistician Peter Bolden, where you drafted your first round pick is out the window right now. So, what have you done for me lately is in. Thanks, Peter.
Yep.
According to Peter, who's talking to me in my ear right now, he's giving me a lot of good information, especially since, like Jared, like you said, the timeshare with Pierce, but neither one of those guys got the bulk of the carries, so that's a little concerning to me. First of all, again, we're stuck in quicksand with another running back they drafted in the first round. What can you get? And the majority of the answer is going to be it's not going to be equal value, but then again, what is going to be equal value at this point? So you just really don't know. So if you could send some feelers out there, I would try and trade him also just because of Bernard Pierce, just because of the timeshare. But, he's a guy you send some feelers out there, maybe try and upgrade a little bit at the position, maybe try and, steal a couple wideouts or, a back that's emerging. See what you can do.
Ray Rice, a proven guy. He's done it for a long time. I don't know. I'd shoot a low ball offer at a Ray Rice owner, see what happens. Me personally. Mike Wallace on the other side of the ball. Mike Wallace is who we thought he was, to quote the great Dennis Green. He had He's had one good game out of 4, and that's probably going to be the format going forward.
And when did he produce? After he bitched.
So keep that in mind.
Dropped 2
fantasy
passes last night. What a bum.
He's a classic boomer bust guy. He always has been, but he gave you obviously more consistent production in Pittsburgh. Buy or sell, Mike Wallace.
Sold.
Drop him.
So
Yeah, it's a unanimous sell on Mike Wallace. Never been.
Good luck trying to, though.
2 sells, 1 drop.
Carolina travels to Arizona this week to take on the Cardinals. Cam Newton coming off his best game of the season against the Giants before the bye, 4 touchdowns. That's the kind of upside that Cam Newton owners have been hoping for. Buy or sell Cam Newton in 2013.
I'm never going to be a Cam Newton fan, not in that offense, not with those weapons around them. So,
Not with Ted Ginn and Brandon LaFell.
I hate Ted Ginn. I honestly hate him. I have so much animosity built up towards Ted Ginn. So, that's neither here nor there. But, not a huge Cam Newton fan. If you're a Cam Newton fan, go out there. If you're a hype beast and you like guys that like to produce 1 week out of the season or maybe 4 weeks out of the season, go out there and try and get Cam Newton. But I'm not thrilled with what he's going to produce week to week on.
yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, the quarterback position is really deep this year. Cam is just another guy.
Cam is just another guy.
He's just a guy.
He's a guy, and that's top-notch analysis from your senior analyst.
Said senior.
Denver rolls into Jerry's World to take on the Dallas Cowboys this week. Going to talk about two big-time tight ends in this matchup. As everybody knows, we like big bodies in the show.
Love big bodies.
He's a real big dude.
Jason Witten, he's been a stalwart at the position for a long time. Had a great week one, has been inconsistent to say the least ever since.
Mm-hmm.
Buy or sell Jason Witten going forward?
I would sell him. Just because of the fact that he's got that name. He has all those stats behind him and the history. You might still get a lot of value out of him. Should people just look at him, Jason Witten? Oh, he's trading me Jason Witten. You know, you might be able to get something big.
Chances are, if you drafted Jason Witten, you probably have another tight end that's probably producing just as good as he is, just because of how deep tight ends are, depending on your league. So, in my opinion, I'm selling Jason Witten also. Not a huge fan of the guy. I mean, in PPR leagues, yes, he has a little higher value than most, but in standard leagues, not so much, especially with the red zone targets that Des Bryant's accumulating. Just throw the ball up for him. He's going to score a touchdown.
And one of those guys that you may have picked up or you may have drafted late in your draft is Julius Thomas, and he is rewarding all of his fantasy owners in the early going of this season. Now, the question I want to ask is, with all as great as Manning is, and we know how great he's been historically great in these first 4 games, still a lot of mouths to feed in that offense. Julius Thomas had a great start. Do you sell high on Julius Thomas, or you buy Julius Thomas? Do you hold on to him? What's your game plan with Julius Thomas?
No, shut your mouth. I hold Julius Thomas because of the fact that, like you said, there's weapons on the outside. Not a lot of guys can account for a big body tight end like Julius Thomas. Throw the ball up. He's going to be a guy who's going to be open. He's going to be a mismatch problem for linebackers who can't run with a guy like him, and safeties and DBs that can't get up on jump balls like he can. So Julius Thomas is the guy you stay with, especially when you get an offense like the Broncos are going to be in the red zone probably about 75% of the game. So keep him around.
Oh, yeah, I would definitely keep him. The chances are you did get him late, like you said earlier, and you're going to have some games where he's probably not going to do much because of how many other weapons they got on offense. But in that offense, he's going to be productive week to week. He's going to score probably 8 more touchdowns.
I agree. Julius Thomas is a stud throughout the rest of the season. Buy or sell Peyton Manning? No, I'm just kidding.
Sell.
Drop.
Die. Houston,
Houston.
who had a poor Matt Schaub. I'm sure he got. Yeah. They were burning Matt Schaub.
He deleted his Twitter account from all the hate
no,
to
he
it.
didn't.
Yeah, he had to remove his Twitter account.
Burning his jerseys out in the parking lot.
Even though it wasn't all his fault.
It's not all his fault. Ooh.
That pass was his fault.
That was one.
That was awful.
If it left your hand, chances are it's your fault.
When you're throwing off balance across the field to Richard Sherman. But anyway, I digress.
That's neither here nor there. Steve, continue. Or my name.
My name's Ric Flair.
Staying with the Texans, they play San Francisco this week. Heavyweight matchup at the stick. Arian Foster had by far his best game of the year last week against Seattle. Mm-hmm. Do you try and go after Arian Foster? Do you trade Arian Foster now after he's had his best game? Where do you stand, buy or sell on Arian Foster, a perennial stud fantasy running back?
Well, I think their approach this week is going to be the same approach it was last week. You know, try and pound the rock a little bit up the middle against 49ers offense, which has been the blueprint for a lot of teams. Get them off balance a little bit in the passing game. Work them out in the flat. Get them involved in the passing game. You got to stick with Foster. If you didn't make your move already for him, chances are you missed out on him.
Yeah, and the chances are he probably went second and 5 picks overall. I mean, like, okay, that's irrelevant now, like you said earlier.
Irrelevant.
But, I mean, I would stick with him if I had him because, I mean, he's showing that he's still getting a reasonable workload, 15 to over 20 carries or touches a game. I would stick with him.
I agree. I would stick with him too, and I'm sure there are probably some fantasy ballers out there that that acquired Arian Foster from somebody who was not pleased with his first 3 games of the season, and you're in luck because you just landed yourself a stud running back. Arian Foster out-carried Ben Tate 27-7 this week. 27 is a lot of touches.
Yeah.
To go along with his 6 catches. So, maybe the demise of Arian Foster was a bit premature. If you got him, hold on to him. On the other side of the ball, the guy we talked about a good bit the first couple weeks of the year is Colin Kaepernick. He's had a couple great games and a couple duds. So, inconsistency aside, buy or sell Colin Kaepernick going forward this year.
Don't look at me. Good, Jer. I want to hear what you have to say first.
If I had him on my team, I would see what people want to propose to me for him. We talked about this earlier. I like the traditional quarterback, 3-step drop, mobile quarterbacks aren't my style.
All right, well, how about we do this? Let's do this instead. Since we had this discussion in the preseason about Kaepernick, but we'll update it a little bit for you because I know where you stand on Kaepernick.
Right. I mean,
Would you rather have Tony Romo or Colin Kaepernick?
I would rather have Romo.
Would you rather have Cam Newton or Kaepernick?
Kaepernick.
Andrew Luck or Kaepernick?
Andrew Luck.
All right, this is the last one. Phillip Rivers or Kaepernick?
Phillip Rivers.
Get the out of here.
Wow.
And you can bleep that. With matchups against Tennessee, Jacksonville, Carolina, New Orleans, Washington, the Rams, one more time for another drubbing, this time in Candlestick.
Drubbing.
At Tampa, at Atlanta, who can't stop anyone right now, and another matchup at Arizona. I'm all in on Colin Kaepernick. It has nothing to do with my alliance to the 49ers. A little bit it does. But aside from that, you can't tell me you take Phillip Rivers over him.
He said it confidently, too. He said yes.
He was more confident on Rivers than he was on Luck or Romo.
He was thinking with, I know, I couldn't believe that.
That was his original man crush.
Rivers is like 4th in points.
Right now.
Right now.
Draft results are truly out the window now.
Phillip Rivers is 3rd in points right now.
The non-stat guy looking up stats.
Behind Payne and Breeze. Not by much, by 2 points.
And who's 4th in?
2 points to
Vic.
Breeze.
And then Matt Ryan.
Where's Romo at?
Matty Ice.
Where's Kaepernick? He's under E.J. Manuel.
Wow.
I'm just playing.
Moving on to...
I have nothing personal against Kaepernick. I like the guy.
Obviously, it's
I
not
like
personal.
He likes the guy. He likes the guy.
What's Rivers' numbers? What's his number then?
Let's see here.
They're off the charts. We know that.
He's got 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. That's
fantastic. There's no doubt Phillip Rivers is off to a great start.
Yeah.
Since when?
And we don't,
Cherish that.
He should be able to keep it, not at that pace, but he should be able to keep up production going forward.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to get your opinion on Kaepernick versus, we'll call that segment.
That's all right.
San Diego travels to Oakland in what's going to be a very late start.
Yeah.
So East Coast,
11:25.
you're going to be spared from seeing this game. I think it's 11:30 kickoff.
Yeah.
Thanks to the Oakland A's, and then they'll play a football game on second base at the Oakland Coliseum. Nick, I'm going to lead off with you right here because this is your boy, Danny Woodhead.
Well, last week I was a big fan of him. I know the show he didn't make the edit. That's fine.
I had to cut
I'm
it
not
out.
a guru, but I said Woodhead's going to kill it. But no, seriously, I think Woodhead's a good guy to him.
Woo! Right here! And pal, I'll kiss your boots if you can do it!
See, he knows what I'm talking about. No, I think Woodhead's a very not like Wes Walker, but he kind of resembles him a little bit. Where they're gonna like to throw him those little short passes. He's not really used for rushing that much, but he's gonna get the reception. So if you have him PPR, I think he's a must start, especially like in the flex spot.
What do you think about that, senior analyst?
Good
Cut that out, Jar.
Can you handle that?
Yeah, I mean,
Silence the crowd.
32 rushing yards on 5 carries, 5 catches, 54 yards, 2 touchdowns. What looked like an identical play on both sides
Yeah, it
of
was
the
just
field.
opposite ends.
Another weapon for Phillip Rivers, Jerry's favorite quarterback. Ryan Matthews is a non-factor at this
Yeah,
point,
he's
right?
nothing.
Nah,
He's nothing.
He's good.
He's the guy.
Lying in the weeds. He's a non-factor
He's
at
a
this point.
He's a low-end flex option.
Low-end flex option. How the mighty have fallen.
He was
not
pretty.
one of those
He was
people.
pretty muddy in that club we went to. Remember when we went to San Diego and he was there?
Yeah. I
What was
do.
it, Envy? We were there.
It
We
was
saw
Envy,
him.
Yeah.
This could be
Yeah.
another story time with J Pro, but you don't bring your camera.
But the fans would never say it. On the other side of the ball,
This is where that gets cut out.
a guy that's had a pretty
Accidentally cut it.
a quietly productive season is Denarius Moore. What do you think about Denarius Moore? He kind of been forgotten in recent years, but was once a productive fantasy receiver. Where do you stand on Denarius Moore by yourself?
I like Denarius Moore. I mean, the chances are he was probably a free agent or was a really late draft pick. I would keep him. He's a solid third receiver to have the rest of the year.
Now, does your opinion vary on who's at quarterback?
It does not.
Mine does.
Maybe slightly.
TPZ. It's
But
got to
I
be
like-
TPZ.
It's got to be TPZ.
It's gotta be.
They're just going to run the ball more
Mm-hmm.
with Pryor.
And I think by TPZ as well.
You got to buy him. He runs on the field without his uniform on in Oakley's
Yeah.
and doesn't get penalized, so why would you not buy a guy like that?
Yep.
Darren McFadden got hurt last week. Broken record. Shocker, I know. Marcel Reese is also banged up, so who's the guy to own in that backfield?
A one
Rashad.
cut back in Rashad Jennings.
Rashad Jennings.
If you're into that kind of thing.
Especially in PPR formats. He caught, 70 for about 80 yards last week?
He caught
70
70 balls.
balls?
No, he
That's
caught...
impressive.
Great analysis, sir.
He caught 8 passes.
He caught 8 passes for what? About 80 yards?
8 for
Something.
71 last
Eight-
week.
Yeah, 8 for 71.
And 15 carries for 45 yards.
Yeah, so
Well, if you can get 100, about 100 total yards from him, a couple catches,
yeah,
that's a
why
nice
not?
flex option in a PPR league,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Sure. Low-end flex option. There's a lot of low-end flexes on this
It's all
show.
about low end flexing.
And the Monday night game, the Jets travel to the Georgia Dome to take on the Falcons. 2 guys for Atlanta. Tony Gonzalez, first of all, turned back the clock big time on Sunday night against the Patriots. 2 touchdowns, double-digit catches. Buy or sell Tony G going forward.
I would keep him. I mean, he showed that he could still produce at a high level. Why not? I would hang on to him.
It was the only time he's had double-digit points all season.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
But
Still,
I mean, well, it's kind of the same thing with Witten. Like, if you have a Julius Thomas, or if for some crazy reason you have Jordan Cameron, you drafted him as a backup, and you haven't either promoted him to your full-time starter or traded him by now, then I would move Tony Gonzalez if you have someone waiting in the wings. But otherwise, I would just hold on to him. What about Roddy White, a guy that's been a perennial stud receiver for the last 5 or so years? Where do you stand on Roddy White, buy or sell?
A little bit of encouraging stat. He actually played probably about 95% of the
I
snaps.
think it was 74 and
So-
76.
So
It's pretty
it's
good.
encouraging, but he still has no burst off the ankle, which isn't encouraging.
No.
So I'm saying probably after the bye week,
Yeah.
probably around week 7, Roddy White will probably be a guy who you want to try and buy. But as of right now, you can't do anything with him. You're just totally fucked with Roddy White. So at this point, if you want to start him this week and hope that the Jets' pass defense doesn't pay any attention to him, all that Cromartie will probably be lined up against Julio and they'll roll a safety towards him. But then again, Matt Ryan will look towards Gonzalez, and then maybe Roddy will find some red zone opportunity like he did this past Monday or Sunday when they actually looked towards him on the final play with passes fell just short. But you never know what he could produce this Monday.
Is Roddy White the David Wilson of wide receivers? 84 receiving yards in 4 games. I know he's been banged up, but
yeah,
He shouldn't even be playing.
I know.
Yeah.
He should. He's,
yeah. They
he
should
really
have kept.
set
They
up.
should have kept him out 1 or
he's
2
really
weeks.
holding his fantasy owners hostage.
Mm-hmm.
Just 2 guys real quick that are on buys. I know we usually don't talk about the teams that are on buy, but for this particular buy-sell segment, I think it's warranted. Doug Martin, buy or sell. Another first-round stud running back. Now with a new, unproven quarterback in Mike Glennon. Where do you stand on Martin, buy or sell?
Well, he's in the same situation as a lot of other guys we talked about. You can't really do a whole lot with him. People, and then again, you have that sophomore slump term that's probably rolling around. I personally, would hang on to him because he's still going to get about 30 touches a game overall. And Mike Lennon's a guy that likes to check down to their running back a lot. He did that in college a lot. And I think that towards the second half of the year, you're going to see Doug Martin's production come mostly in the receiving game.
Yeah, he's
That's
still
just-
one of the leading rushers in yards total. So, I mean, I'm holding on to him just because the offense
Yeah.
isn't that potent. So, in my opinion, you're holding on to Doug Martin.
I think Doug's going to get a lot of touches going forward. Guy that missed the first couple games of the year came on the scene in a big way in London last week for the Steelers, and that's Le'Veon Bell. 2 touchdowns in his debut against the Vikings. Buy or sell Le'Veon Bell after his one-game breakout.
Well, personally, his buying price is going to be really high.
Mhm.
I mean, chances are you got him, you're not going to trade him. So just keep him.
I'm not sold on him just yet, just because it was against a subpar Vikings
That's true.
run defense, and the fact that the Steelers' offensive line is riddled with injuries. I'm not sold on him just yet. They play in a tough division, good run defenses in that division. Not sold on Bell just yet.
Well, what's interesting is that when he was hurt when probably most people drafted. So
Right.
I don't think anyone drafted him as a starting running back.
No, he
So if
slipped.
you have him as your third or, depending on your league, a fourth running back, would you try and capitalize on this opportunity right now?
Sell high, absolutely.
Right. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
if you have him as like your third or fourth running back, then yeah, you could sell him high and try to get like a better wideout or.
All right, great stuff. We'll be back with our Legends and Jerkoffs for Week 5. All right, everyone, it's time for everyone's favorite segment of the show, the Who the F is That Sleeper of the Week, brought to you by the United States government. Even though they shut down today, they've single-handedly been keeping J-Pro in business for years. Thanks, Obama. God bless J-Pro, who probably pulls in more money annually than everyone at this table. But he will walk in the Wawa and pay for those Arnold Palmers with an EBT card, ladies and gentlemen. But we're going to cut that. And anyway, Jarrett, it's give me your Who the F is That Sleepers of the Week. The fans have been patiently waiting with bated breath for the last week to hear what you got for them. And I think you got a Who the F is That alum that you're going to hit us with at some point.
Yep, we forgot about him, but I'm going to save him for last. My first one, I'm going to say Zach Ertz. The Giants give up the 4th most points to opposing tight ends, and his role is growing each week. They got to get those tight ends involved, like we said earlier. I think he catches his first touchdown this week. My next one, T.J. Graham. Expect them to be a little more active this week with Joe Hayden all over Stevie Johnson. He's got the speed to take the top off the defense, so I see him getting a few big catches, maybe going for a long touchdown. My next one, Luke Wilson, not the actor, tight end on the Seahawks, out of Rice. Just remember the name. That's all I'm going to say. My last one, everybody waited 4 weeks for Justin Blackmon to come back, but they forgot about the other guy, the four-game suspension, Levon Brazil. He's back. Reggie Wayne and T.Y. Hilton are going to have their hands full with Richard Sherman and Brandon Browner all day. Brazil's back. He's going to be in the slot. He's going to make some big plays. Count it.
I'm going to pass it along to my producer, Nick Specca, who has the... wait, hold on. Let me... I had a good intro for this. We got a lot of questions coming in via Twitter. As always, at any point during the week, send us your questions or comments at Best Effin' Show on Twitter. Like us on Facebook and send us any questions, Best Effin' Fantasy Show. And I'm going to pass it along to our producer, Nick Specca, who has the first question.
All right, first question comes from @GNMCZYK15. He wants to know, I need 2. D. Rich, Marino, Wilson, Gio, Bo, or Eddie Royale with cheese.
I'm going to go Marino and Gio, confidently.
I'm going to go Gio and Bo.
I agree with Jerry on that one, too.
Oh,
Yeah, a lot of questions.
Trade for him, bro.
I know.
Trade for him. Everyone loves Bo on this show, Mike, but nobody wants to up the trade for him. Love that.
Our next question
Coming your way.
comes from @Drew Estate,
All right.
C-Loss, a.k.a. Carlos. He wants to know, should I start Kaepernick versus Houston or Alex Smith versus Buffalo? But keep in mind, Alex Smith is not playing Buffalo this week.
I don't care if Alex Smith's playing Newman this week. It doesn't matter. I'm going Colin Kaepernick.
I'm going to go Kaepernick confidently, too. I mean, Alex Smith, he's been clutch, but Kaepernick definitely has the upside. You can't give up on a guy after, he's had a few subpar weeks, but you can't just give up on him.
Well, I think if you drafted Kaepernick pretty high, you got to use him. Alex Smith is more than a fill-in guy.
Right.
I mean, Steve, what do you think about that?
Well, look, I think everyone is just so quick, and it's not just about Kaepernick. It's a general statement. I think everyone is just so quick. Everything's just instant gratification. You need something instantly. What have you done for me lately? It's a marathon this season, as Carmen said earlier. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So, I'm just so tired of hearing about after somebody has a bad game, oh, this guy stinks, this guy's a bum, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not how it works. It's let the season play out. Don't give up on, guys that are proven commodities. Like we talked about earlier in the show with guys like, Spiller and Ray Rice and, Arian Foster, the big-time guys. Don't hinge your whole fantasy season on 1 week. That's all I'm going to say.
Preach. I feel the same way, Steve. You can't give up after one bad week. But our next question comes from our boy LT Hank.
Hank.
We love you, Hank. He wants to know, hi, who's got better value? Halou, Rashard Jennings, Hunter, Green, and Jonathan Stewart from the Panthers. It's a non-PPR league. He said thanks.
Jared, I think we're both in agreement here. It's Rashard Jennings. Out of all those guys, you're talking all backups or guys that are in a defined timeshare. Mm-hmm. Rashard Jennings is the guy, at least in the short term, who's going to get touches. Darren McFadden's hurt. He's going to be out. At least this week, he's going to be out. Marcel Reese is hurt. Rashard Jennings is going to get the lion's share of touches. He's the only guy out of that group that holds immediate value.
Yeah, he's actually a high-end running back, too, this week if McFadden's going to be out in a high-scoring game against San Diego.
I agree with that, too. Our next question comes from @Ticcio, and he wants to know, I was offered Vincent Jackson and Alex Smith for Antonio Brown. What do you guys think about that? Currently first place by 100 points. That's great, Ticcio.
Well, it's great that you're in first place by
100 points.
But as somebody who owns Vincent Jackson in 2 leagues, he's in a tough situation. Vincent Jackson's an excellent receiver. He's in a tough situation. Antonio Brown is the better play at this point. Vincent Jackson, he's got a rookie quarterback battling the rib injury. He should be okay after the bye, but he still has to deal with the rookie quarterback. He's going to be up and down all year. Antonio Brown. You throw Alex Smith, or is it Alex Smith that they were?
Yeah, Alex Smith.
Yeah, throw Alex Smith out of the equation. Antonio Brown, I'd rather have than Vincent Jackson. That's me personally, and that's a guy that owns Jackson in 2 leagues.
Yeah, I agree with that. Brown offers more upside in the long run. Vincent Jackson is going to be a headache the rest of the way.
Our next question comes from @Alfabano. He wants to know, should I start Cecil Shorts or Antonio Gates in my flex this week? It is a PPR league.
Antonio Gates, no question.
Yeah, don't even bother finishing asking the question.
Yeah, of course. It's got to be Gates on that one. Our final question comes from our number 1 loyal fan, NYC Money. It's panic time. He's 0-4.
Oh, Jesus.
He wants everyone to know, though, he is the defending champ, so he's going for back-to-back titles. It's a
lot of thanks due to the best.
Yeah, well, we led him there to the promised land, and we're gonna lead you back to a 4-4 start. You're gonna run the train on this one.
Let's go. You're gonna run the train on your league, bro.
He's gonna first tell us his team. He's got Tony Romo, Spiller, Miller, Eddie Lacy.
I'm gonna sit down for this one.
My boy Wilson, Cecil My Shorts, Mike Williams, and Alex Smith. He wants to know: would you trade Tony Romo or Alex Smith for more of an elite wide receiver such as Demarius, Deshaun Jackson, Julio, and Garcon? Please help me. Bro, I really need your guys' help.
Jared, before you give him an excellent, well-thought-out response, I just want to say, and I love NYC Money. Mm-hmm. He's a great friend of the program. If someone's going to give you Julio Jones or Demarius Thomas for Alex, he mentioned Alex Smith. Did I hear that properly? Yeah. Or Tony Romo? Look, Tony Romo is a good fantasy quarterback, but if you're going to get one of these top 5 receivers for Tony Romo, then absolutely do it. But it's not happening. At least I don't think it's happening. I know it's a thin league, and Tony Romo it probably holds a little bit more value, but I don't know. That's my thought, Jared. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel the same way. But I mean, you mentioned Demarius Thomas, Julio Jones, and then you mentioned Pierre Garcon and Deshaun Jackson, who don't deserve to be in the same sentence as those other two guys. So if you could give up one of those subpar running backs and Alex Smith or Romo for one of those elite receivers, then go ahead and do it. You could hopefully pick up Brian Hoyer. And if you get Demaryius Thomas or Julio Jones and then have Brian Hoyer, I'd be happy with that team.
It's good. That's all the questions we have for today. I'm going to send it back to Steve. He's going to end the show off.
Nick, thanks a lot. Guys, thanks for all your questions for this week's show. As always, hit us up with any questions or comments you have regarding your lineup on Twitter at BestEffingShow. Check out the website, besteffingfantasyshow.com. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Good luck.